You're listening to Brainwork Framework, a business and marketing podcast, brought to you by focus-biz.com.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode. With me today is an entrepreneur who is working with inbound and outbound call center in Costa Rica. He is one of the top trainers for call centers here, and we're so excited to have him on and share his journey with us. Richard Blank, thanks for joining us. How are you?
Chris, so happy to be here with you today. I got plenty of tips and tricks and unfortunately some downs, but a lot of ups to share with you. And I'll shed some light, make sense, and assist your entrepreneurs in moving forward in their careers.
That sounds fantastic. We really appreciate you taking the time. Tell me more about your past work experience and how it brought you into what you're doing today.
Oh man, I went as far back as being a waiter on Delaware Avenue in Philadelphia, and I realized I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. It was fun just for the summertime. But no, when you're young, you might have pressures from family or friends. There's certain career and educational expectations. And so I couldn't follow in certain family footsteps, Chris. I didn't go to Harvard Law like grandpa, Washington and Lee like my older brother, and Columbia Business like my dad. I didn't have the structure, discipline, or grades, but I loved Spanish. So when I graduated the proud Abington High School in Northeast Philadelphia, I got some college recommendation letters from my Spanish teacher, my principal, to pursue this second language. It was tough to compare notes to my friends. They were going Ivy League and studying medicine and law, but I had passion. And so it meant that I could study it and I could do dedicated practice outside the classroom to really live it. And so I interned for Telemundo post-grad, worked for the importers of Corona. But Chris, when I was 27, back in August of 2000, I was given a 1 in a million opportunity in life. A very good friend of mine owned a call center in Costa Rica, wanted me to come down for just a couple months to teach English. Well, a couple months turned into 4 years. I learned the business from the inside out, but not at sea level. And in my mid 30s, I had some capital, impulse control, maturity that actually threw my hat in the ring and started my business. And here we are, my friends, 16 years later, 150 seats and sitting on a 300 seat capacity building that I own. So it's been long, but thankfully there was a light at the end of that tunnel.
That's incredible. It's got to be so much pressure to have your family and those around you have such successful careers, within college. And that's a lot of weight for you to carry on your shoulders and to feel like you have to live up to those expectations. And just with that simple drive and that passion, you wanted to pave your own path to success. And you did it. Here you are. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It was a lot of hard work to get there, I imagine.
It was about being realistic and even mature in my teens. Let's look at it a couple different ways. If you would put me in that box and I had to be a finance major or do something, let's say I could figure it out academically, I wouldn't have been happy. There's no passion to that. But my argument to my parents were that my great grandparents came from Eastern Europe to the United States at the turn of the 20th, and they were in the garment industry in New York and learned English and made their money. So it just skipped a couple generations. Our families, Chris, we're nomads. And how about this? It wasn't a parlor trick or something that was cute where I knew 20 vocabulary words. My family couldn't speak Spanish. And so when I was speaking with individuals that were bilingual, they were giving me positive reinforcement. They were telling my parents, yo, this kid's got it, or he loves it. And there's a passion behind it. It made me marketable. It separated me from my friends. And so my argument to my parents was about where I'm going to spend my money in education and what I'm capable of doing. You have to get past your parents' guilt from time to time. And Chris, a lot of people will decide to live their own life and not fulfill the lives of others. And so did it break some hearts? I guess. But then again, my friend, we all need to leave our own castles to slay dragons and save princesses. And if someone's holding you back, you're never going to go on a roller coaster and experience life. And so my argument was to live. And I could have always clicked my heels and come home and been in the family business, but I wanted to try. I had some grit. I had some vigor. And I know that at the end of the day, I wanted to look at myself in the mirror and know that I went 15 rounds. That's the kind of forced march that people are on as entrepreneurs. Those are the sort of moments of clarity you have when you ask yourself, do I continue or do I stop? And I kind of compare myself to those that have survived being on the ocean for months or getting out of those deserts or forest situations where they should have been dead long ago. but there's something in you that drives you to do something and move forward. That's why boxers sometimes just, even though their legs are giving up, their body doesn't. They just want to keep going. And I don't know, my friend, I had to be true to myself. And I think entrepreneurs, once again, need to be true to themselves as well. And I believe that's one of the key elements you need in order to have that endurance to make the distance.
Yes, absolutely. One thing you mentioned that resonated with me right away was that parent's guilt. It's that feeling that we have to follow this certain path or these expectations, and then in turn we need to prove ourselves that, especially with if we're going to make our own path, we need to make that successful. We need to make something out of it, and that's a struggle and a challenge in itself. But again, like you said, you kind of want to just move along your own path, prove it to yourself, and look at where you are now. This is just incredible.
We have Vision Quest. There are spiritual life's journey. One of my favorite movies was Vision Quest back in the 80s, where Loud and Swain had to take on Shoot for the state championship for wrestling. Every single person has their own individual goals that you have to work for. And a lot of the times it's dedicated practice to prepare for the exam, prepare for the boxing match, prepare to live life, and prepare to love and to prepare to dream. And I was willing to do this. And I think a lot of people like to see the romantic. There's always exciting to see not the streaker, but the person that just runs on the field and runs for a little bit because we all wish we could for a second, or run up to your favorite rock star or athlete and give them a hug and a high five and get an autograph. Sometimes people have butterflies and not willing to make that extra step, but the ones that do have one of the greatest stories to tell for the rest of their life and inspire others. And so I was willing to be a martyr. I was willing to fall on a sword and really choose my battles wisely. And this really wasn't something that was a war. And a lot of entrepreneurs feel stress, or we were mentioning prior to the podcast, isolation. But guess what, champ? This is what you signed up for. This is the price you pay. If you want to make $1 million, there might be a bump in the road every now and again, and people might disappoint you. But if you can handle it, it's the reaction, not the action. It's the character during chaos. It's having that level head and not letting emotions get the best of you. And if you can do these sort of things, then you could be an excellent leader and you can build a business.
Very well said. I love it. So, in your line of work with what you're doing with the inbound and outbound calling, are there certain industries that you find have been, you know, gravitating towards your service the most, or is it just a wide range of different industries and verticals?
It's an excellent question. First, let's just say that I believe that outbound telemarketing and lead generation is a means to an end. I know people today prefer non-voice omni-channel chat and email support, but I always believe that personal spoken connection can really bond with somebody, anchor with them and have that relationship. But it's not the industries that need it, because I work with inbound intake coordination for a law firm, customer support for movies and music, but I also do outbound for transportation, for tourism industries. There's so many different types of stuff that we do, but it's really about fulfilling the need of the client. If they're asking me for something that's outside of my skill set, I don't personally understand. Small labor pool, there could cause a lot of attrition because of the pressure, stress, and unrealistic metrics and expectations. I don't think I want it. I want to make sure that since I'm a guest in this Catholic country, that what we choose is not a legal gray area. And it's something that you and I can go home, Chris, and tell our parents what we do for a living. You should see some of the phone calls that come in. They want me to be the fall guy. Come on, this isn't the Maltese Falcon. What's going on?
Your rates just quadrupled at that point. You're like, or you just say, I literally can't do it because your name's on the line. Your reputation is behind it.
It's a beautiful point that you put up. You should never sell yourself for $1. Really, there's plenty of money out there. And you mentioned reputation. Of course. I mean, man, I could have grown so much faster and I could have taken accounts that had a sense of urgency. Just because you have lack of preparation doesn't mean that I need to drop everything and run for you. That was always the red flag for me. We should always be starting business on a level playing field and at a certain level.
Yes.
Don't expect me to hire 50 people for you tomorrow. That's not right. And then don't start insulting me saying, I thought you're the greatest call center. Yeah, man, I thought you were prepared. I mean, it goes both ways. Come on, 50 cents ain't going to get you to the beach and gas.
Yes.
It's not Fred Flintstone.
No.
But try to work backwards. I allow you to speak first. You are in my wheelhouse, and don't encourage me because someone named Jasmine in your office can make 20 an hour. Sometimes it doesn't work that way. And so Be forthright, have no surprises. Let's use mutual resources and infrastructure. And if we can do that, it's going to be a phenomenal relationship. And so I love to call you with the home runs, Chris, let you know we just made 44 deals. But the better relationship I have with you, my main man, is to call you today and to let you know Billy just quit. He didn't give us a 2 weeks notice. I don't know what happened. Maybe Amazon hired him. They're here in Costa Rica, though. They'll hire you same day. But I tell you what, my brother, I never gave them the walk of shame. I never embarrassed them in front of everybody. We probably lost him because of a scheduling conflict at his university. You know, his girlfriend works there. Plus, it's 2 minutes from his house. So what are you going to do? It's a natural attrition. But I called you. And I got 3 people that are ready to go. I just sent you the recordings. Choose the one that you like, and I'm going to have them trained and ready to make phone calls by tomorrow. And also, my friend, I want someone that wants to be here. I don't want someone piecing out on me. You started strong, end strong. These are the sort of things that I look for in long-term players, not just when you fill out the resume, giving me the bells and whistles. I think that's a sham. I think that's a shiny object. That's a mask. Why don't I give you the zigzag question, Chris? Like I've seen on all your podcasts. Why doesn't Chris ask me a coming of age moment? And so maybe my agent on the phone for a moment can put the script aside and show you depth and essence. And so when I can read that from you when you're filling out your resume and you give me a couple paragraphs, I can gauge your ink. But I want to see if I can give you a nickname. I want to know if I can tell you that story to pick you up on a rainy Tuesday, right? And as I mentioned before, are you part of my company culture? Are you just another print? Or do you have the capability of showing me some color and being a painter? And if you're willing to be vulnerable and open yourself up to me, I will accept that. And I'll also make you powerful. And so selectively with 150, I can choose accordingly. I don't need to bring them in like they do for the larger centers. I can choose my dirty dozen. I can get my Delta house. I can get all the right people to make this synergy work.
I love it. That dedication and knowing exactly what you want and what you expect from your team, and the fact that you communicate that well and motivate them, I think that's what makes a great leader. And again, with all the businesses that are going to be working with you that hire your services, they're looking for the best. They want people who are going to show up every day and actually do the work and put in 110%. And a lot of us, when I was in the working world, working a job, it's almost like that first 90-day, employment phase where they're like, we're kind of testing you out. I feel like that's the honeymoon phase. You're all really excited. There's the lovey dovey. Everyone's really excited. And then 6 months in, you're married for a bit and maybe you lost that passion and that fire. And like you said, people are piecing out and they're like, I don't know if this is right for me. You kind of disengage from that relationship and most importantly, the work that you're putting in. It's unfortunate. But again, at the end of the day, you're trying to hire the right people that are going to put forth the effort. And in addition, when you found someone left, that obstacle that came to you, you already found a resolution before even contacting the client. That is the way business should be done. You're managing expectations and you're moving the project along and providing resolutions. Business owners don't want more problems, right? They want solutions. So when you come to them, I feel like that's exactly the way people should be treating their own business, providing the solutions without, creating more problems.
Of course, you had mentioned the 6-month mark where people, they fall out of love. I
Uh-huh.
don't believe in that. I believe in checkpoints. I believe in positive reinforcement. Let me give you specifics for my industry because most people don't like telemarketers. And I do not think the majority of your audience are CEOs of call centers. They didn't sell their soul like I did for this golden fiddle. So anyway, in my industry, there's certain things that I can do. It's a luxury trade. Besides making or receiving phone calls, these individuals are bilingual, which bears the mark of higher education. So Christopher, they're getting a return on investment, just like I am with my Spanish. So at least por lo menos, they're getting something out of their phone calls every day. Not only that, I have a certain infrastructure. We have a quality control department. We listen to your calls. You could look at it from George Orwell's 1984 perspective, or you could look at it from Mr. Miyagi Karate Kid perspective. The person that's the future leader wants to be coached and trained and balanced. The one that's insecure and thinks they know it all don't want to be touched. Well, that's great, but you're making the bad habit and you're running in circles. But it's the squire to the knight. And so when I give you these recordings, besides grading you on what we call KPIs, which are key performance indicators, certain qualifications we ask, or if you're using the military alphabet, doing positive escalations where you're mentioning the individual's name and verbally and written when you get transferred, company name spikes, open-ended questions, transitional sentences, tie-down questions. We can go through all of this stuff, but that's what's expected of you. What I want to see are the soft skill. How many times you use their name in a certain way? Do you use personal pronouns like a your or an R with a quarter-second slide to get their attention again? Confirm information. Stack questions. It's a beautiful thing. Taking meeting minute, really following through on a pipeline or making phone, maybe even doing some due diligence prior to the call, like you and I had done prior to the podcast. We both know a bunch about each other. So instead of small talk, now we're buddies. You're starting on third base and you're already 6 steps ahead. So people hate these small talk situations. What are you talking about? Reputation precedes you. I got 50 things I already read about you on Facebook and LinkedIn. Can't wait to talk about ice hockey. And
Right.
so
You just took a cold lead into a very warm lead.
what
Now
are you
now you have
talking
some
about? Of
foundation.
course. Can custom make voicemail. You can custom make emails. You can at least separate yourself from the 99 other people touching base with you. Doesn't mean you'll get the account, but you'll at least get a second or third throw at it. At
Yes.
least you'll buy yourself another 30 seconds of time. That's all you need is Indiana Jones to get the gold and get out.
Really. Today's day and age with marketing, we're so just bombarded with ads and messaging and hey, pick me. And we really need to into that outreach and that content and be true and authentic. Build a relationship here. Ask questions. Like you said, all these things really go into making sure that the other person, the recipient of that message, is more open to what you're going to say. And now you have your foot in the door. Again, it's much different as as opposed to like you knock on the door, hey, how's it going? Can I come in? Versus you just busting through the door. Here I am. Here's what I got. Buy my thing. That's the wrong way to go about building relationships.
If you're doing it like that through the pincer movement and carpet bombing, instead of saying, may I come in? I would start off by saying, Chris, so glad you're there. Oh, man. Got 3 minutes for me? Of course you do. I'm already in.
It's
Already
beautiful.
brought you some Starbucks. My main thing is, and this is another good point you brought up, deaths. I mean, I like to jump clouds. I like to, at least in 30 seconds of a phone call or a pitch, if you're going to hang up on me, I've done multiple things, my friend. So I can have a romantic death. I can do a company name spike. I could say, Brain Work, From Work Podcast. How are you today? I can start strong. And they call that like almost mystery shopping. I'm using my anonymity in the first couple seconds by saying the name of the company that you're familiar with. We also have something called a buffer boomerang technique. Check this out. It's how you readjust tone. Someone can give you a negative tone and I can buffer it. I go, Chris, that's an excellent question. My name is Richard Blank. So any question they ask you, you name drop them, you repeat the question to show active listening, you buffer it and you send it back in a positive way.
I
Plus
love
that
it.
positive escalation, letting the gatekeeper know how amazing they are. And when you get transferred, saying the thing again. They gave you the pass the pitch, so you give the gift. At least it gets you 30 seconds. Good push off in the pool. You got some momentum. It's not guaranteed, but at least you got the first round of the fight. And so I believe that if you can do this 100 times a day and have these beautiful romantic deaths, it's better than worrying about those 3 10-minute calls that you're just grinding through and hoping it works out. It will work out because you're not going to be making 10-minute calls now, Chris. Now you're making 12-minute calls, huh? You're not making 100 calls a day. Now you're making 85. Why? Your metrics just moved. Longer talk time, less calls, larger conversion ratio. So stop yelling at me. I'm making
That's
more sales than everybody, but you're on the phone with Chris for 20 minutes. Yeah, because we're talking about the Flyers and his dog was in the background. We both love dogs. So I
exactly.
mean, everyone needs to calm down and let the artist paint, because when you commission the artist, you restrain them. If you allow somebody with their soft skills and the business, combine the two, then you have a little bit of Richard special sauce and it allows them to Eminem freestyle just a touch. It's almost like recess during school. You get a break every now and again to do your own thing on a call for a second, which will bring in that distance, reduce any sort of ego defects, and allow you that flexibility to move. And so I don't see these as sales calls. I'm making friends. And wherever the way the bingo balls bounce, that's just how it goes, G. But the most important thing is I'm having phenomenal 50 or 60 conversations a day. And don't be surprised if people are referring me, or even if I got to call them back, we're locked in. Man, this job was too easy. People were putting way too much weight on themselves and trying to do the Wolf of Wall Street or Glenn Ross or try to be Blake because coffee's for closers. What are you going to do?
I love the way you put that and just that attitude towards what you're doing. You're building relationships here. Even as you mentioned within your KPIs, hey, we took a 10-minute phone call into a 12. A lot of businesses are going to say, oh, we're not doing it. That's not the quantity we need, but we need to consider the quality as well. If you're having better quality conversations, at the end of the day, your end result, your return on investment is going to be much higher. Even if the starting numbers in your funnel, the outbound calls, the conversations had, go for quality. There's too much quantity out there. We need to focus on quality nowadays.
I don't even think like that. You remember Star Wars, which
A
was
little
kind
bit,
of
yeah.
fun? Luke was never in this alliance. He never got trained in the military. He's just some kid from some planet somewhere that was flying around on his craft. Little did he know, without that sort of blockage, without that sort of mindset and theory, players, that would have ruined him. That's why he took off that computer. He just went,
Huh?
he went severe old school. And little did he know that whatever he did raised the ranks. You see the movie, it's the random one that comes in. It's the man with no name, Clint Eastwood, spaghetti westerner. He's nobody, comes into town. He's more powerful than the mayor now and the sheriff, and then leaves again. So don't underestimate yourself. Your unique flavor and unique color in the crayon box is exactly what these environments need. They need someone like you to shake things up a bit, not to rock the boat, be a clown or distract. Give them another perspective of life, see things from a different way. And I think it's a breath of fresh air, because what you're doing is you're surrounding yourselves with yes men and people that are afraid to say something to you. The greatest ideas are the ones that are way off because they look at it in a different perspective. And so I ask everybody's opinion prior to making the most largest decision.
That's so important. Just an example, could you kind of share what it would look like working with you? For as an example, just some history about me. I started a wedding DJ business 9 years ago, built a team of DJs, and that was my full-time income for a while. I had to learn everything about sales and marketing because without that, you can't have a business. So I went back to school and earned a marketing degree and opened up my own marketing agency. So now today we are focusing more on doing outbound outreach with people. And I feel there is a need for having some sort of hired support, possibly your service. What would that look like? The agency is B2. What would that look like working together? I'm sure there's a needs assessment. What could you recommend? I guess I'm just hoping for people to kind of understand what it would look like working with you.
Do you have a script, Chris?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's
kind of, sort
it's
of. We just
so
know it by heart.
generic.
Yeah.
It's
Do you
generic
have
from the other guys.
rebuttals? Do you have
Rebuttals, like
rebuttals?
overcoming objections. Yeah, there's a few
Overcoming
there.
objections. Okay, good. Do you have any recordings that I can analyze from your top closers that are converting calls and getting hung up upon?
I believe there are recordings, but I'll have to double check. I
You got to double
apologize, Richard,
check.
because I don't think I came prepared.
No, but you are prepared. And that's the beautiful thing, because I get to, by asking you these questions, to see where you're at. Not saying where your strengths or weaknesses are. It's just the kind of thing that I'm obsessed with. So we look at your script for an example, and I'm going to ask you to take out the thesaurus, because I like to power up certain words. Give you a really good example. Someone will say, how may I help you? Don't do that. Use words like assist, guide, or lend a hand, which is my favorite. Same message, different delivery. These are things that can avoid some sort of egos. Instead of saying, excuse me, say, for my clarification. Instead of saying, no problem, say, my pleasure. What? These are the simple little things that I'm doing to get the marks out of the car first. We got a lot of work to do, buddy. The first thing is, let's just assess this machine that we have here so we can start restoring it. And let's see what's been working for you. What hasn't been working for you. Chris, are you using a predictive dialer? Are you manually dialing or smart dialing? Because if you use a predictive dialer, got 2 to 6 lines going at one time. Depending on the drop call ratio, you could literally be speaking to whole hours worth of people minus wrap up time and things like that. And so, unless your agent has built up that sort of endurance to do batting cage for 4 hours straight, they're going to get tired. I mean, it's amazing for work performance, but once again, you got to work that muscle memory. And that's why I like to incorporate play. Working with me is play. I have a gamification culture. I collect pinball machines, I got air hockey tables. And so I have a neutral environment where people can let off steam, recharge batteries, hang out with me, and do things like that. So when it comes to my clients, even though you're not here physically to play the pinball with me, we can still have word games or have fun or do certain sort of role play where we can assume. And then it's very important for us to gauge. So we would make the calls and we would see the certain reactions. I'd come back to you, listen to the recordings, and we would adjust accordingly. You seem very hands on, which is phenomenal for me. So you're the kind of coach that would speak with the agent, motivate them, give them, as you were mentioning, the authentic and sincere shout out. Even if he didn't get the account, he got further. Even if he didn't get the sale, he did the rebuttals. Or how about this, my brother? Man, I give the most points ever on a phone call if somebody says your name, not in the introduction or in the conclusion, but in the body of the call. If you start calling me Richard in the middle of the call, or even Richie, I get 100% in my quality control. Why? Because that's the genesis. That's where it begins. That is such a solid stake in the ground. You're not moving. The fact that we connected that way, everything is good. You're not going to fumble. And so my main focus for you, for your telemarketers, inbound, outbound, for entrepreneurs, there's always that, like Luke Skywalker, one shot, little hole blew up a whole thing. Achilles heel, a match can do an incendio, can bring it down, right? Little things, a little bit of snow can be a snowball, but think of this chain reaction. And so my thing is, instead of analyzing your script or the list or the contract, the prices, your main thing is what you learned in kindergarten. Be nice to somebody and know their name and sit down with them. And if you can reduce all of that, then at least you have a really good chance from an educated point of view, having them make a decision because it's as pure can be. And I always try to get there as quickly as possible. And by doing those positive escalations, by doing the due diligence, I have taken us from a 10 to about a 2, and it's almost like foul shot percentages of me landing my connector. And so as long as people are in that now and making motions forward, I think naturally they will see that sort of progression. It's not forced fit, right? It's a better long-term play. And so that would be my main suggestion for you and your audience.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you. One other thing that I saw within our show notes here was it really intrigued me was the phonetic micro expression reading. Is that
Oh
similar
yeah.
to like is that like body language sort of things, the phonetic micro expression reading? Or am I completely off? Please
Micro
educate me.
expression reading, you are 100% correct. There was a show called Lie to Me that actually had it. And a friend of mine from high school, Micah Halpman, was an actor on it. But sure, you can study people's, and people talk about it all the time, facial expressions, haptics, they touch you, body posture, aesthetics, what's around the room, object adapting, self adapting, clicking, chewing, touching, who knows? Okay, fine. But on the phone, we're eliminating certain senses, Chris. You're eliminating taste, touch, and smell, right? And so your hearing should be expanded because you're losing senses. But then people make the argument in regards to visual, okay? Well, I believe in image streaming. There are adjectives, there are descriptions. People claim that imagination is better than what you see because the book is better than the movie. So my focus for you, my friend, is to look at the sound of speech, the sound expression reading.
I love that. You have to have some variance within any plus or minus of that, wouldn't you?
Pretty simple, my friend. Remember when you took pre-algebra, you had a simple XY chart. Let's look at the horizontal. You got a 0. Are you fast speaker or slow speaker? Then look at your vertical. Are you loud or are you soft? Just for argument's sake, Chris, put me in quadrant 1 and as an 8 in regards to speed and an 8 in regards to speaking level. Okay, so I'm an 88. I don't pay attention to people's tones because that could be manipulated. My suggestion is that that should be on your end, the consistent variable, right? That represents your emotion. It should be confident and empathetic. So let's just put that aside. The mirror imaging technique, which you are aware of and what everyone keeps talking about in regards to matching someone's expression reading. Well, if you want to match someone's speed and how loud they sound, that's fine because you can find out if there's a spike or a dip. I'm just meeting you for the first time. I will gauge you in 30-second segments. 10-minute phone calls, actually 10 1-minute phone calls, or if you're really smart, it's 20, 30-second calls. Still the same thing, but you are focused in the now in these certain areas here to see if there's a spike or a dip in regards to their phonetics to be done in any language. Now, when this happens is usually when we ask clarification questions. Makes sense, right, Chris? Sounds good, right, Chris? so I can get these checkpoints, ask you if you have any more questions. May we move forward? Put it to bed, move forward. That's why sometimes people don't land the account because they're still thinking of something 5 questions ago. You got to make sure you wrung it out, put it to bed, and you move forward. I see spikes and dips. I also know that the answering speed is something that cannot be manipulated. Your tone, rate, and pitch can be manipulated. The answering speed, which is the subconscious, you'll be lucky if you do that a couple out of 10 times. But you said phonetic. Phonetic is the sound of speech. Yes, my friend. But if you think of the philosophy, the silence is really the sound. You need a yin and a yang. You need a light and a dark, a sweet and a sour. So you're not going to really know the sound unless you have the silence. And the silence, in my opinion, speaks much more than your tone, your rate, and your pitch, because that is inside of you, right? And so if you're looking for certain tell signs, if people are facetious with you or you need additional clarification, those would be the times, in my opinion, that you should interject and ask for that clarification question because something's just not right. And so I'm not saying for you to dissect phone calls, but man, after 2 decades, analyzing tens of thousands of phone calls, I saw patterns. And most people are lazy in their speech. And a lot of the times they're giving it away. And if you pay attention, and after a couple weeks of studying this, you make it habit, it will assist you in making your conversations a little more lucid. Manipulation in the sense of deduction for clarification to move forward so there's no rabbit holes. And it's a beautiful dance if you're willing to accept the art of speech and really be in that now. And so thank you for letting me share that with you. Yeah, your
Yeah.
phonetic micro expression reading, it rocks.
I love it. It's fantastic because there needs to be some variety within our, within our communication, our messaging. Because if we just talk monotone like this, there's literally no variation, and that can get boring very quickly. Your communication style seems more adaptive. It can flex. It's malleable. You are changing how you respond to something based on their reaction, what information they're giving you, and I think that's so important. We need to be more flexible and adapt a little
Yes.
bit more often.
Keep it pure, my friend. You said monotone and low. Well, I'm going to match you monotone and low because if I try to, I guess, influence that decision, it won't be a real read. I need to see how you react to gauge where we're going. Because if I try to push it on you, do you remember the comedian Stephen Wright? He was very famous for his monotone voice, but he was very funny. So if you're not doing monotone, that means that the level won't move. So that's like a 2. But if anything and nothing, I would be studying the speed and the pausing because that's the only thing you're giving me because you're manipulating the other 2. It just might be your way, man, just like the Godfather and how he spoke with a loud whisper. And so I can't miss your style on a first time read. Your soft spokenness could be the most loving when your raised voice could be aggressive. And so I'm willing to accept you. And I might be the only one that's willing to low and slow it with you and walk with you. And as you say, boring, my man, if you're pulling out your credit card and you're buying things from me and you're on the phone with me for 10 minutes and giving me 5 referrals, you're calling that a boring call just because you don't sound like
It's
rockets.
not fully animated, so I don't want your money. Of course not.
That's the iceberg. That's the guy. That's the biggest. That's the undercover boss.
Yes.
That's the real test. Are you willing to treat this person that's only going to give you one seed or one pizza compared to the guy that buys the 10 pizzas, but it's a 10 shot compared to the one guy 100 times? You choose. I
Mhm.
treat everybody the same, like gold and like a prince.
As people
Not
should.
going to influence me on that. Yeah.
I love that. Now, Richard, we're getting closer to our wrap up time, but I always like to ask, was there one thing in your journey that was just, it was so eye opening? It was your aha moment, the light bulb, something you wish you had known earlier, something that other entrepreneurs can take note of and just say, okay, Richard knows what he's talking about. I want to follow his advice because if he would have enacted this sooner and had that, these kinds of results, what would that mean for me? So do you have any other tips or tricks that you wish you would had known sooner?
Let me give you 3.
I
I'll
love
give
it.
you right before I started, right in the middle of where we are today. When I first started waking up one day and saying, I'm going to change my life and following through with it the whole way. Okay. So That's a nice moment. It gives you cosquillas and butterflies. You're nervous before the big dance because you know you're going. And so I like that sort of feeling of being brave and being bold. It felt really good to fight the invisible bully, the lunatic fringe that's on the outside that's bothering you, that mosca in your ear. You got to get rid of it. And so I decided at 35 that I was getting too old. Time was a ticking. And I really wanted to see if I could make some money. I wish I'd done it earlier, but maybe I wasn't mature enough. So in the middle of this, I also realized that from time to time, you're going to be disappointed. I don't get angry. I expect the most from you, but I get disappointed, especially during COVID. There were certain people that I expected to step up to the plate and they ran for the hills. And then I had freshmen that were wet behind their ears that were the most incredible leaders that I've ever seen in my entire life. It makes you humble. So that's another thing. Just really, you judge people during certain moments and hopefully you have preventative measures versus a cure. And now today, 16 years later, no hair and being on my friend Chris's podcast, my advice to your audience is not to be hard on yourself. You have to look at yourself in the mirror, give yourself 5 when you put your head on the pillow in the evenings and have your moments of clarity. This is a good way to live your life on a daily basis where, regardless of the outcome, you did that day with honorable intention. That's what true leaders do. They sometimes sail off into the distance without even seeing land. Sometimes they're bold and brave and go into the cave like Scooby-Doo did. And so those are the things that legends are made of. And so that's where I think through the stages of my career, I've gotten to where I am today to not have a heavy heart, to put things to bed, pay it forward, and just be in a complete balance right now because it's healthier that way, my friend. I don't want to sacrifice my well being to earn a dollar. It's just really not worth it.
All great advice. People are really going to enjoy implementing those and getting rid of their anxiety and maybe getting that confidence to be a little more brave, a little more bold in their next chapter in their life or next action item in the day. Take it with confidence. Make sure you move forward and don't let those obstacles weigh you down at night because you need some rest in order to be ready for the next day. Now, Richard, where can other people find out more about you and your company? Share all the links, descriptions. If you have a special offer, let them know.
Special offer is to buy a first class plane ticket and come visit me so I can hang out with you.
All
That's what I
right,
want
let's
my
do
audience
it.
to do.
Hey, let's do it.
But I got a very large Facebook fan page. We have 103,000 local Costa Rican ticos. It will give your audience a grasp of the business process outsourcing industry in Central America. Now, real quick, Chris, we are north of Panama, south of Nicaragua. Costa Rica is the only democratic society in Central America. There's no standing army. They put all their money back into education, so we boast a 95% literacy rate. Not going to believe this. Companies such as Amazon, Intel, and Oracle are here. We got the best infrastructure. We're known for medical tourism, but especially ecotourism. We have some of the best surfing in the world, hot springs, zip lining, butterfly farms, iguanas, you name it. This is paradise. And I married the girl of my dreams here. And so, listen, I can't thank you enough. I had the best time on your podcast today. And I hope I was able to share some advice. And for your audience, just go for it. Seriously. And then send me an email and let me know how successful you are. I'll be very proud of you.
That's amazing. Richard, thank you so much. Make sure you check out the links in the description so you can find out more about Richard. I appreciate everything, Richard. I hope we can chat more and have you on in the future, a year from now, and maybe you have even more enlightening advice to share with us. We appreciate your time.
I appreciate being here as well. You take good care, Chris.
Hey, you as well. Thank you.